Ranking UK rivalries and derbies, one of the most asked things for me to do on the channel. So here I am, peak international break content, and I'm absolutely here for it. So let's get into the video. Yes, lads, welcome back to the channel. Today is another tier list for you guys. I just want to say, right, I absolutely love these tier lists. They're some of my favorite content to make. If you haven't seen me ranking all 92 clubs on club size, go and check that out. Link will be in the description for that. But today, it's a different kind of video. It's UK rivalries and derbies. One of the most controversial topics. I think club size has to be number one, doesn't it? This probably number two, because people get fierce about their rivalries. So I'm going to rank them today. As you can see, I've got almost, I feel as though this is every single rivalry in the sort of United Kingdom. Northern Ireland football fans, just turn off now. Because I promise you now, I'm not putting them in this list. It's no disrespect. Levels. There are levels to this game. So, of course, we've got all of the ones in England. We've got, I believe, all of the ones in Scotland. And I have done my research on this. I'm coming into this educated. And we've also got Wales, obviously, Swansea, Cardiff, Wrexham, Chester. But this is obviously, of course, English football. So, no actual Welsh. Again, I mean, Wales and Northern Ireland, same bracket. Same bracket. But anyway, let's get into this. Categories wise, we've got genuine hatred. I'm talking real blood goes into these rivalries. They are the sort of creme de la creme. Gets tasty is, you know, if it's on TV, I've got to make sure I've got to watch this one. Because it piques the interest, you know. It gets a bit fiery. Decent enough. Just a game that it's fierce, you know. It's fierce. It's basically just the middle of the road. And they're not quite at that level of sort of gets tasty, genuine hatred. So I'm going to be very honest about giving these out. Now, we've also got one-sided. Now, one-sided, of course, as it says on the tin, those rivalries where one club cares to the irons and the other club doesn't even acknowledge the existence. Then we've got overrated. Now, overrated, as it says on the tin again, it's just going to be those rivalries that I just think, like, why does it get the hype it deserves? It shouldn't do in my eyes. And then stop pretending at the end. And that is for, you know, your stat. I won't go into it. I don't want to spoil who I'm going to put in there. But that is for your ones where it's just like, guys, what are we doing here? Why are you even trying to claim this? You know, so yeah, you'll see who goes in there. Maybe one early doors if you have a quick look at the clubs. But anyway, let's get into this. So up first then, we have got the Sheffield clubs. Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, the Steel City Derby. So this one is, I mean, I'm just going to go straight in. I'm going to go straight in with genuine hatred. Because when I look at these two, I mean, they're one of the only cities in the whole of England that has two clubs that were founding members. So historically, this has been brewing right from the beginning. And there is genuine hatred. It's such a shame what's happening to Sheffield Wednesday. I do hope they can bounce back because we need to keep seeing this. If Sheffield Wednesday dwindle down the leagues, that's not good for anyone. So, of course, genuine hatred. Now, moving on next. I mean, right, Chelsea versus Fulham. This is what I was referring to in the intro. Chelsea versus Fulham, stop pretending. These guys, you know, they share their scones, however you want to say it. It's just not a proper rivalry for me. And I'm sure that Chelsea and Fulham fans will look at it and be like, oh, no, guys, just stop. Just stop. It is one of those ones where you just happen to be close to each other. There is nothing fierce about this. It's barely even a rivalry, in my opinion. Up next is going to be Crystal Palace versus Millwall. Goes into stop pretending for me. I mean, Millwall, West Ham, Palace, Brighton, they're the main focuses. I feel like Millwall and Palace maybe stemmed from Palace's championship days. They've been in the Premier League that long now. I don't necessarily think this is a rivalry. Probably a game that if, you know, Millwall get promoted to the Premier League, they'll probably look out for. You know, oh, when are we going to play Crystal Palace? But that is as far as it goes for me. Oxford versus Swindon. Now, this is the Thames Valley Derby. And I'm going to go with decent enough. And I feel as though this one's a little bit underrated. If there was an underrated category, I would put it in there. Obviously, back in the 80s, they tried to do a little bit of a merger. That sort of made things even worse. They're only about a 30, 45-minute drive, depending on traffic. And I always think that is good, especially when you're not in London, you know, where you're a little bit further up. So, yeah, I think Swindon and Oxford certainly deserve to be decent enough. Up next, then, we've got Southampton, Portsmouth, the South Coast Derby. Now, this one for me, it's genuine hatred. 100% genuine hatred. One of my favourite derbies, rivalries, whatever you want to call it, in English football. I think it goes a little bit under the radar. These two despise each other. And it's always been a little bit of Southampton just above Portsmouth. Portsmouth have had their moments, but now dwindling down the leagues, then come back up to the Championship. Southampton done the opposite, got up. So I just feel as though they're sort of like always intertwined in some way. Now, what I'm just going to explain quickly as well. So I'm actually going to do it like this. So it's not just going to be these two clubs here, for example, Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, Portsmouth, Southampton are both genuine hatred, and that's it. I'm actually going to rank it. So, for example, first, it's going to be Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United. Second, Portsmouth, Southampton. But if I was to put Portsmouth, Southampton there, that means I rank them higher. So just as an FYI, as the video goes on, it is going to be the Sheffield Derby, of course, as the top rivalry so far. But just so you know, it's not just a ranking video of what category. I'm actually going to put them in physical order. So you're going to actually get 1 from 46 or 47, whatever it is that I've got in this video, in actual order. So there you go. But Portsmouth, Southampton, genuine hatred, 100%. Up next is Charlton versus Millwall. And again, it's going to go in stop pretending. And the main reason for this reason is because Charlton have bigger fish to fry, in my opinion. That's the first thing. And Millwall the same. Millwall sort of have these small little spats, I'll call them, with a lot of clubs in London. But ultimately, it's Millwall West Ham. That is the focus. So Charlton, Millwall. Maybe if it was played more frequently, if Charlton can sort of maintain that status as a championship club, it might become more fierce again. But as of right now, stop pretending. It's just a made-up rivalry. Grimsby versus Lincoln, another one that I'd actually put in underrated. But I feel as though this one goes under the radar slightly. Now, what I will say is that it's not on the level of Swindon versus Oxford, in my opinion. But it is one that, you know, there's been a lot of time spent in League Two, sometimes in the National League. So these two have always been there. Nationally, I don't necessarily think a lot of people would look out for it in the calendar, but I know both sets of fans do, and so therefore I'm going to go for decent enough. So just a little heads up, I've actually just quickly moved as well, Millwall and Charlton, so they're the sort of the best of the bad bunch in Stop Pretending. Chelsea and Fulham sit bottom, just in case I didn't make that clear when I explained it. So up next then it is Barrow versus Carlisle, and again, I'm going to put this in decent enough, and it's very similar to Grimsby and Lincoln, one that on the national stage doesn't get much sort of conversation or no one really looks out for it, but certainly one that the local fans, they really do look forward to. Now, I actually think that I'm going to put it slightly ahead of Grimsby and Lincoln, and the reason being is just because of how they see football up in Cumbria. I feel as though it's a very sort of tight-knit community. Football matters a lot up there. So that's why I think it is just that little bit of a bigger game than Grimsby versus Lincoln. So yeah, but one that definitely gets under the radar, shouldn't be under the radar. Bristol City versus Bristol Rovers. Now this one goes in gets tasty. A big fan of this one as well. And I feel as though Bristol, one of those cities where it is just those two clubs, not much else around it. So it's always going to be one of those games. It's a shame that Bristol Rovers have dropped down to League Two, I have to say, because it's another one similar to Southampton Portsmouth, where you just want to keep seeing it because it is one of those games that does stand out on the calendar. Maybe not like a Barrow Carlisle. This one, we all know about it. So certainly in gets tasty, deserved of that. Up next then is Huddersfield and Leeds. Now, this is an interesting one. I've gone for one-sided, but it's a strange one because they're actually very close to each other in terms of location. But this is all Huddersfield caring about Leeds. Shoot me down, tell me I'm wrong. I just think that is the case. I don't think any Leeds fans ever gone, do you know who I can't wait for us to get in the cup? Huddersfield. There's just bigger names on that list. I'm sure it's a fierce game potentially sometimes when it gets played, but no different to sort of a title rival playing against each other. Like, it's just a manufactured rivalry from one side, and I think it's Huddersfield's side that it comes from. Now, moving on then to Barnsley and Rotherham. So in contrast to Leeds and Huddersfield, I think this one goes in decent enough just on the mindset of, well, actually, these two clubs do have the same level of sort of hatred towards each other, whereas Leeds, Huddersfield, not quite the same. So I do think that's the case, and I think that it's actually going to become the biggest rivalry in decent enough for us. I do like this one. It's one that does get played quite regularly as well. Rotherham, a bit of a yo-yo club. Barnsley have been very solid in League One for a long time now. So it's one we see quite often, which does allow it to build and grow. So yeah, I think decent enough is more than fair for Barnsley and Rotherham. Now then, Exeter versus Plymouth. Now, this is going to be top of decent enough, 100%. And it is on the borderline of gets tasty / decent enough. Now, what I like about this one is there's already a bit of a natural divide. You've obviously got Devon and Cornwall, and I think that already leads to a cool story. Now, if these two are able to play more regular games each other, I think it's going to seriously ramp back up. I mean, look at the result this season for Exeter Plymouth. The games have been very, very solid. So I would just say it sits in decent enough, has potential for gets tasty, but yeah, one that when I saw it on the calendar, I have to say, made sure I was sat at the TV watching. Now then, Port Vale versus Stoke. Now, also, I do apologise. Some of these images I've had to get, not the best. This is a great example of it, you know, and they are very close to being in one-sided, but I'm going to go in decent enough, and I'm actually going to put them at the bottom of decent enough. Now, Port Vale and Stoke from the same city, which always makes things a little bit more tasty, but let's be real. Stoke are so far ahead of Port Vale that it's sort of diminished this rivalry in some ways. Now, Port Vale will obviously care about Stoke a lot more than Stoke care about Port Vale, but because of the history, I just think it can't be fully one-sided. If Port Vale could find themselves back in a higher division, maybe this would be a case, but yeah, decent enough by the skin of its teeth. Preston versus Blackpool then, the M55 derby. Now, I like this one. There's a very cool stat about this one. So it's actually been played in every single EFL, not the actual Premier League, but every single league. So Championship, League One, League Two. That's a cool stat. It is. Now, I'm going to put it in decent enough, and I'm going to just rank it ahead of Swindon and Oxford slightly. It's one of those ones where I feel as though the fans of Preston and Blackpool, you all know about it. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those ones that you all look forward to, and it's a tasty game. For everyone else, it's not on the same national scale, but certainly one that is a little bit underrated and does provide some decent games, good moments. So yeah, I think there is a dislike between those two sets of fans, and not enough people really know about it. And Wigan and Bolton up next is the exact same story. I'm going to just put them slightly ahead of Preston and Blackpool. And it's another one of those ones where, as a fan, you don't like them when it comes to that game. Is it the highlight of your season? I don't necessarily think it is. Premier League history for both clubs as well. If they were to meet in the Premier League when the stage is at the highest, maybe that would bring a lot out in terms of the fan bases. But yeah, it's just a decent rivalry, nothing too special. I mean, it says what it is on the tin, decent enough. Coventry versus Birmingham. Stop pretending. Stop pretending. I can talk on this one with chest as well. Now, maybe you could argue because when they play each other, it can get a little bit fierce and they might pretend that they don't like each other. But let's be honest. I have seen a video of Birmingham fans and Coventry fans singing in unison, singing shit on the Villa. I mean, that is as tin pot as it gets. Coventry also shared a ground with Birmingham. Come on, guys. You're sharing grounds, acting like best mates. Yeah, in my opinion, stop pretending. It's just because they've been in the same sort of leagues for so long now, not in the Premier League, that they just have to try and make something up, don't they? So yeah, stop pretending. Easiest one I'll give, but it's not Chelsea Fulham. I'll give you that. QPR versus Brentford. I mean, this one probably just goes ahead of Stoke versus Port Vale. I mean, the thing with this one is it doesn't happen too often. Obviously, Brentford were lower leagues now. They've been in the Premier League for a decent amount of time. QPR were in the Premier League. So not one that happens all the time, but they're very, very close to each other. So it could be borderline stop pretending, but at the same time, because of how close they are, it's one of those games that probably just has to sit in decent enough. Aberdeen versus Dundee. Now, this one here is going to go in one-sided, and I think it will go at the bottom of it as well. And from the research I've done in this, you've got Sir Alex Ferguson, Jim McLean, like those sort of times, yeah, it was fierce, don't get me wrong, but we're going back to the 80s now. So looking at where this rivalry is today, it feels one-sided, more so from Dundee's side to Aberdeen. Aberdeen have been a lot closer to Celtic and Rangers, and that's ultimately where this rivalry is formed. So yeah, for me personally, from what I've seen, and let me know in the comments, any Dundee fans, what you feel about this, but I just don't think you can justify having this rivalry any higher than one-sided. Aberdeen simply just do not care. Wrexham versus Chester up now, and I'm going to put it in decent enough, but it's going to go at the bottom of decent enough, if I'm going to be completely honest. It's one of those ones where it's probably going to fall down. It's probably fell down already, but it's going to fall down to maybe one-sided. Well, it probably is already, to be fair. But as Chester and Wrexham, they were a very similar level. It was a fierce game. Of course, it's like across the border. It's England versus Wales. We all love that. It's a little bit like Bristol and the Welsh clubs. I haven't included that. I don't really think it's got legs because there's better people. But anyway, Wrexham and Chester, they're slowly just moving apart, aren't they? Of course, Chester went all the way down. Wrexham are going all the way up. Wrexham will be a Premier League team in the next 5 years. I think that's pretty much guaranteed, and it's going to make this rivalry irrelevant. But as of this second right now, it is just holding on by the skin of its teeth to being decent enough. Up next is Kilmarnock versus Ayr. And from what I've seen, this one is very, very interesting because the two clubs obviously very, very close together. The Ayrshire Derby, I believe it's called. And I just feel as though Kilmarnock are so far ahead in the grand scheme of things. However, if these two were to play, I think decent enough is where I'll put it. And I think I'll rank it above Stoke and Port Vale. I think I will, because I feel as though Ayr typically Championship, Scottish Championship club, Kilmarnock typically a Premiership club. So when they do meet, I feel like it's a big occasion in Scottish football, but probably just doesn't happen at the level it needs to give it any more sort of credibility. But certainly from what I've seen, a bit of a fierce one, this one. Up next is Leeds versus Bradford, and that's going to go in ahead of Preston and Blackpool and decent enough for me. And I do like this one. Leeds and Bradford very close together, not necessarily in league position. It's never really been like that. Bradford had a decent run in the Premier League previously, but this one will always be tasty. Always be tasty. It could never go as far as one-sided, and I think that's a testament to the size of a club that Bradford actually are. Chelsea versus Spurs then. Where would I put this? I think Chelsea versus Spurs probably would sit behind, because this isn't really a derby per se. Chelsea, I mean, I feel for Chelsea. They don't really have that main rival, do they? Whereas Spurs and Arsenal, that is, those two are the ones that go together. You've got some great moments like the Battle of the Bridge that really feed into this, and it is a fierce game when they play each other. But I don't necessarily think that you can argue that it's a bigger derby when you think about rivalries derbies than the Cumbria derby. And I think that's fair to say. It's always on a grander stage. It's always for more. But in terms of fierceness and the sort of the rivalry itself, I just can't do that. I can't do that. I'm going to be honest. Right then, Middlesbrough versus Sunderland. It is a one-sided, and it's probably I'll just go straight into it. Newcastle and Sunderland against Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough, I feel for you boys. I really, really do. Because this isn't me saying that when you play against Newcastle and Sunderland, it can't mean big things. But it is so unbelievably one-sided. All Sunderland care about is Newcastle, and all Newcastle care about is Sunderland, and therefore Middlesbrough just get left out like a spare part. And I am actually going to put it so that they are the furthest down one-sided. So I just really don't think Middlesbrough, if Middlesbrough go up to the Premier League, that can change things a little bit because it then makes it a bigger moment in terms of being at the top level again. Historically, they just don't care. They just don't care whether you like it or not. I'm sorry to say it. They just don't care. Manchester City versus Manchester United. And this is going to sit in overrated for me. Now, where is it actually rated? So I feel as though the general conception is that this game is a massive game, always is, one of the ones that you always look out for in the English football calendar. And I don't think that's true. I think Manchester City as a fan base, I feel as though their fan base has been really sort of watered down in more recent times. Manchester United don't have the success in the last 15 years or so, which is crazy how fast that's gone. But they don't really have that success. City's fan base has been watered down. I just don't think it's as fierce as anyone wants to make out. Back in the day when you had your Gary Nevilles and you were up against your Stuart Pearce for Manchester City, that's when it was good. That's when it was a serious game. Since then, the Haaland and Roy Keane incident, since then, it's not really on that level, and I think it is overrated. And when Manchester United get back up to the level that they should be in terms of fighting for titles again, maybe you're going to have that back when you think of Aguero with the Rooney. So you've got the Man United players celebrating, you've got Manchester City winning it in the last minute. That's the peak of the rivalry, in my opinion. And it was only from a competition basis that it got fierce. So I just think it's overrated. It probably sits realistically in decent enough somewhere, but I feel as though people are going to try and have it as gets tasty or genuine hatred, and I just can't get on board. So it's going to sit exactly there. Coventry versus Aston Villa, one-sided as it comes. Maybe back in the day, maybe back in the day, this game was a little bit more. I mean, it's always been Villa Blues, but maybe Villa saw this like a little bit like a West Brom. Coventry had a decent time in the Premier League, but Coventry fans despise Villa. And the reason being, so they're about 20, 25, 30-minute drive away from each other. And the reason being is because Villa technically relegated Coventry, or it was the nail in the coffin that sent Coventry down from the Premier League, and they've never returned since. So I'm now 27 years of age. It has quite literally been 23, 24 years, something crazy, maybe even more, 25 years since these two clubs have played. Now, I come from a Coventry family, Coventry fans. That's my mum's side. My dad's side were all Villa fans. So I know how Coventry feel about Villa. And the way that they feel, they despise them. They're singing songs about Villa, as I mentioned earlier, with Blues fans. And Villa fans do not care about Coventry. In my time of supporting Aston Villa, going to Villa Park, I have not ever heard one song sung about Coventry City. I've heard it about West Brom. I've heard some about Wolves. Of course, you hear some about Birmingham. None about Coventry City. So absolutely zero comes from Villa's side. Coventry fans, a little bit obsessive when it comes to Villa. And I grew up in a Coventry school, so I've had, pouters my entire life about Villa and Cov. So now we're going to get this huge moment where Cov and Villa do play. And it's not huge in Villa fans' eyes, only in my eyes because I'm from Coventry. So I hope that explains it. It's as one-sided as it comes, and hopefully it might eventually hit decent enough at some point, but Coventry need to have some consistency in the top flight, rebuilding that rivalry, because right now, no Villa fan cares at all about Coventry. And Wolves versus Villa sits at the other side of one-sided. Wolves care more about Villa. That is historically how it is. But I'm not going to sit here and say that Villa fans don't care a little bit about Wolves. I think they do slightly. I say they. I think we do slightly. I'm trying to not be too biased here. Maybe that's a bit crazy to say after the last pick. But I feel as though we do care about Wolves to an extent. And I feel as though maybe it's a good comparison because Cov versus Villa could get to where Wolves versus Villa could be, but it needs that consistency of playing against each other. That has rejuvenized the rivalry a little bit, but it's still one-sided. Wolves care more about Villa, that is a fact. Ipswich versus Norwich then. Now, this is going to sit at the top of decent enough, and weirdly, it's actually quite similar to Exeter and Plymouth. There's not really any other clubs around them, is there? It's always going to be those two clubs, Ipswich and Norwich, and Plymouth and Exeter. They're always going to be the biggest games for them. So I think that does give it credibility because there isn't anyone else to attach yourself to. But at the same time, it doesn't quite get into gets tasty for me. It's on the borderline. Both of them are. I think Ipswich Norwich has more of a shout. I think look at what happened in the summer with Nunes going from Norwich to Ipswich. I love that stuff. That's the sort of thing we want to keep seeing, build that rivalry. Ipswich now, though, going to probably go up back to the Premier League. Had a fair bit of time in League One as well, so they haven't played each other that much. And when they have played each other this season, I thought it was going to be the closest it's ever been. I thought Norwich could be in the promotion race. It was going to mean so much. Not quite the case, but definitely a very good rivalry. The fan bases do not like each other. Has potential to get tasty. God, that is a mouthful. Try and say that. And up next is another example where it could be gets tasty. I'm going to put it just ahead of Plymouth and Exeter. It's Leicester and Forest. Now, these two really do not like each other, but obviously Derby and Forest is always such a bigger moment. And Leicester fans may hate this, but Leicester and Coventry, in my opinion, is the biggest one for them. So I'm going to actually move it back slightly. I think it's just going to go ahead of Wigan and Bolton, actually. I think that's a very fair place to put it, just because it's not the main club's rivalries, but it doesn't necessarily mean to say it's still not a very big game for both sets of fans. Watford versus Luton. Now, this is going to sit at the top of gets tasty for me. Now, it's borderline genuine hatred. These two clubs do not like each other. The M1 derby, very close geographically, which is always going to add a bit of tension, but no, 100% these two do not like each other. A fierce game. Unsure where it necessarily sits at this current moment in time in terms of the two clubs. Luton back down to League One. They had the Premier League times. I would love to see this game in the Premier League with the stakes as high as they can be. I think it would be a wicked game. But as it stands, no, certainly gets tasty. There is some real bad blood between these two. Now, Coventry versus Leicester. It's also going to sit and gets tasty, and it's going to sit in between these two. And it's one of those ones that could also leapfrog Watford Luton as well. Now, maybe this is because of my experience being able to see this game close up, what it means to both fan bases. It's nasty. It is nasty. The M69 derby, I mean, there was a little banner that was left on a bridge on the M69, so all of Leicester would have had to come this way. Look at this sign. It was about Leicester's owner. It gets nasty. I've seen machete fights. I've seen fights after the game. Like, this is seriously one of the most underrated derbies in the whole of the UK, in my opinion. And it's just because, like, I don't know, Leicester always in the Forest derby shadow, you know, that's not their main thing. Cov really had this thing with Villa going, and the two of them are almost just reluctantly pushed together, but it creates a very hostile environment. I mean, it was, I forget which one it was. There was a Leicester Cov game recently. Fatawu got sent off, and Cov turned it round and won the game. Unbelievable atmosphere. I mean, Jesus Christ, like, those two clubs seriously dislike each other, and I mean, look at where they are now. Cov going up to the Premier League, Leicester maybe down to League One. It's a shame because I want to see this game more and more. Chelsea up against Arsenal now, where I put Chelsea, Tottenham in decent enough. I'm going to put this at the bottom of Gets Tasty. Now, two clubs that are always going to be competing at the top sort of level of English football. Massive, massive clubs. Champions League winners in Chelsea. Arsenal not quite got there yet. But what I really like about this one is the Wenger and Mourinho days. The Arsenal Invincibles against the Jose side that, in my opinion, the Mourinho Chelsea side that conceded the 15 goals, only losing one game as well, by the way, nearly invincibles, is a better achievement than the Arsenal squad that did go invincible. That's maybe a debate for another time, but this one here, it goes and gets tasty. There's a lot of history surrounding it. They're close enough, and I think that sometimes, and I know this might contradict what I said earlier, but sometimes it does apply when you are playing at the highest level, and it is for the golden prize in football, the Premier League. I don't know, I think it does sort of ramp it up a little bit. The sort of stakes are always higher. Now then, Blackburn and Burnley, the Lancashire derby. Now this is going to sit and gets tasty, and I think it's going to top the list. This was one that nearly made it to genuine hatred. Now these two do not like each other. The history, it's these two mill towns that sort of got bigger and bigger. One of the oldest rivalries in Football League history. And when you see them play, there's an atmosphere. There is a serious atmosphere. So yeah, a big fan of this one. Sits and gets tasty. Genuine hatred. It's one of those ones right on the borderline. Cardiff and Swansea, the two biggest Welsh clubs in English football. This is a difficult one. I think it goes ahead of Watford and Luton, and it isn't gets tasty. We're ramping up now. We're getting the serious ones in. Now, this one, you know, they'll probably turn around to me and say, it is genuine hatred, etc., etc. But I just think it's get tasty. There's a lot of history. The fact that they are the two biggest Welsh clubs is always going to mean something. But I think that's a large part of why it means something. If Wales and England just combined and Wales no longer existed, I just think that's where it sits. It sits in get tasty. But the fact that it is the two Welsh clubs, it bumps it up a little bit for them in themselves, whereas the rest of English football and sort of Scottish football look at it just as a massive game, but it's not quite the genuine hatred you see in other English rivalries and, of course, the big Scottish ones too. Palace versus Brighton, it's going to sit in decent enough. And it's probably going to sit just behind the Cumbria. Do you know? This is a difficult one. I'm going to put it just above I'm going to put it above Swindon and Oxford as well. Now, the reason why is because this one 10 years ago, I think it would have sat in Stop Pretending. But it's come a long way, and it's come a long way because the two clubs have managed to elevate themselves in the English football pyramid. So I have to give it a fair ranking, but I can't really justify it being in something like Gets Tasty. No one's ever sat and watched Palace versus Brighton and gone, whoa, this is a tasty game, have they? It's just good enough. It's a good enough derby that's on the rise. If I make this list in 10 years from now, if they continue the Premier League sort of trajectory, who knows? Maybe it does get and gets tasty. But as of right now, there is a disliking. I'd say it's as far as that. Now then, the Dundee derby. I mean, this is gets tasty, isn't it? And I actually think I'm going to put it as the highest gets tasty. Now, if you didn't know, go and have a look on Google Images after this video, but go and have a look. And these two grounds, I think it's like 100 meters apart or 100 yards apart. They are disgustingly close together. And what that does is it then breeds a culture of, well, who do you support? And you'll have families living next door to each other that support different. I just think it is unbelievably underrated as a rivalry, probably fairly rated in Scotland Scotland, but in England, it doesn't get the credit it deserves. 100% gets tasty, bordering on genuine hatred. I just put it in gets tasty because it's just all so mixed and intertwined. I mean, what a derby, what a rivalry. I want to go and see one of these games in my time because I've heard some very, very good things. The North London derby, oh God, and overrated. Overrated. And I'm going to tell you why it's overrated. Because it's just not on a decent level. I much prefer to watch Chelsea Arsenal than Tottenham Arsenal. They're the only two clubs that really care about this game, in my opinion. I don't think the rest of English and Scottish football looks at the calendar and goes, Arsenal, Tottenham, massive game. It doesn't help that Tottenham don't win anything. Arsenal haven't won anything for a long time, so it's not like these games are getting played at the highest stakes, the highest level. And I just think that both fan bases are just trying to make it into something it's not. If an Arsenal or Tottenham fan was ranking this, it would be there. It would be in genuine hatred. But in actual fact, it probably just sits indecent enough, in my opinion. Indecent enough. It doesn't deserve the credit that the Arsenal and Tottenham fans give and the media gives as well. Don't try and force it out to be some rivalry that it's not. It's overrated massively, but it's more overrated than City United. I'll at least give them credit for that. Maybe we need our own category for the North London derby because it's just very, very overrated. Manchester United and Liverpool. Now, this is going to sit there for me. I don't think when we're ranking rivalries, we can actually turn around and sit there and say that this is better than a Swansea Cardiff or a Blackburn Burnley or a Dundee rivalry. Because yes, it's a fierce game, but this is two of the greatest clubs in English football going head to head on a competition basis. That does still rank it high, in my opinion, and it's definitely a game I look out for, a game where two fans get up for it. The FA Cup one where Ahmad scores that winner, probably one of the greatest ever FA Cup games in history. And so it does have those historic moments as well as just the competition aspects of it in terms of the two sort of fan bases going at each other. But yeah, I just think that's all it's got. There's not a massive fierceness. Liverpool and Everton, that's more fierce in my opinion. And Manchester United, Manchester City, they probably care more about that in that sense. But competition-wise, it's these two, isn't it? Speaking of Liverpool and Everton, I do think that is going to go above the Blackburn Burnley, but not above Dundee. They're actually quite similar in that sense. They're very, very close together. And if you grow up in Liverpool, you're either Liverpool or Everton, and that's the case. And I actually think there's an argument to say that Everton have more sort of like, I don't know, die-hard fans than Liverpool. Liverpool has it become a bit more of a tourist club. It's what success brings. It is, isn't it? But now I look at the Hill Dickinson Arena, Stadium, whatever it's called, and I think, wow, Everton have just made a move to now compete with Liverpool. In the next 5 to 10 years, the games are always heated, always fiery. The next 5 to 10 years, this derby could put itself as one of the best derbies in English football. Because seriously, if Everton can start competing for Europe, it just completely blows this one up. So I'm a massive fan of it. There probably is hatred, but it's not quite on the level that I think the two that I've got there. So we'll leave them in gets tasty. Hibs versus Hearts. Where to rank this? It's above Southampton Portsmouth, but is it above the Steel City derby? I mean, if you didn't know, this derby, it goes back historically, religion-based. Hibs are basically like Celtic and Hearts are basically like Rangers in terms of the Catholic, Protestant, that sort of thing. And Edinburgh, I've been to Edinburgh recently to watch the Six Nations, and I absolutely love the city. And I tell you what, they get up for it. They get up for it when it comes to this. Where I was in the Airbnb, you could see the Hibs Stadium, and then I've seen the Hearts Stadium as well. Proper, decent feeling around it. But I'm not going to rank it higher than the Steel City derby, but certainly one that is very, very fierce. Genuine hatred. Hatred between the two sets of fans and also the competition aspect as well. It's always going to be there. Now then, this is where it gets tough. West Brom and Wolves. This game, it was played recently. My word. It kicked off massively. Gave me a newfound respect for it, I have to say. And I'm going to put it up here. Where to put it though? Where does it rank? I think it goes above Southampton Portsmouth, but not above. No, it does. Is it the biggest? It's not. No, it's not quite the biggest, but it is so up there. Massive game. Always going to be between these two. There is some real hatred here. Real hatred. And Wolves and West Brom and Villa, like it's always sort of, and Blues obviously as well, it's always sort of like a game you look out for, Villa, West Brom, whatever it is. These two, no. This is their biggest by a country mile. West Ham and Millwall. Now, this is arguably the closest to Celtic and Rangers in terms of the fierceness and the actual hatred. The problem that we've had, I mean, it's genuine hatred. We all know this. And I think it's going to sit, I think it's number one. I think it's number one for the time being. We'll see if anyone else dislodges them. But genuine hatred. They despise each other. They've had away fans banned at times. Like, it really is on the serious level of rivalries. And it's just a shame that they don't get to play it more often. West Ham flirting with relegation. Millwall flirting with promotion. You just know, if anything's going to happen, they're going to leapfrog each other. But I feel as though notorious-wise, violence-wise, it's got to be up there as probably number one for now, but we've got some big hitters still to come. Forest and Derby. That's going to sit just ahead of Southampton Portsmouth. Now, there is real hatred here. The whole of sort of Nottingham and Derby, it really does create a real atmosphere when these two play against each other. This is a game where there is real hatred. I mean, Brian Clough, obviously, manager of Derby, left under some very bitter circumstances, went to Forest back-to-back European Cups. I mean, he has quite literally created a lifetime of these two always going to hate each other. And it goes back further than that. It stems back to the history. But yeah, geographically, very close. The history, Brian Clough, everything that's happened, the meetings they've had since, the violence, it just simply has to be genuine hatred. One of the best rivalries. Underrated as well, I feel. Not everyone has his opinion, but it is definitely up there for me. Villa versus Blues. I'll put it up here. I'll put it up here. My head says I want it to be number one, but I'm not going to do that. I think it's a huge game. Two sets of fan bases that absolutely despise each other. I think because of Villa's supremacy in this for so long, it does bring it back a little bit. They didn't play for ages after Blues got relegated. And it is always going to be one of those ones that I look out for. I always hope in the FA Cup, either Blues or Coventry. Again, you know my reasonings for that. Don't sort of try and clip that up and claim that I've said it separately. But you know why. But it's Blues. They're the one that you want to have. Very fierce. Look at what happened in terms of that guy that came on and punched Jack Grealish in the back of the head. Like, that St. Andrews goal, by the way, the most celebrated goal I've ever had. The feeling that gave me was just different level. So shout out Jack Grealish, Villa legend, don't care what anyone says. But yeah, it's got to be up there. But I just think West Ham Millwall, if, you know, from what we've said along the video as well and how we judge the metric, has to be higher. And I'm fine with that. Now, Sunderland versus Newcastle, the biggest rivalry / derby in England, categorically. I don't think, and that might tell you where this game's going. Let's just do it. We'll talk about both. So, Sunderland, Newcastle, English derby, massive, absolutely huge. Two of the biggest clubs in England as well. Don't care what anyone says. And the problem I've got with this one is where they put the away fans in general. Like, put them closer to the pitch, please. Like, make it a bit more of a better game in terms of that. But all they care about in Sunderland and Newcastle is football, and that is literally it. It's football. It's a massive thing there. You've got Newcastle, One Club City, Sunderland as well. And that is all they care about. It is what happened in Sunderland and Newcastle. And that is why you might look now at Eddie Howe losing his job, potentially losing his job. And the results against Sunderland are a huge factor of that. It is massive up there. Absolutely massive. There's not many that you could lose here to your respected rivals and be sacked potentially because of it. This is one of them. And obviously, Celtic versus Rangers. I mean, if I did a world rivalries, it's going to be near the top. I think this one goes back to so much more than football. It is a complete hatred for one set or the other. I mean, we've had away fans that have been banned. There's been fights breaking out, the pitch invasion recently. Like, these two simply despise each other. Now, I'm quite new to Scottish football in terms of posting it. I've watched it for years and years, but new to posting it. And the stick I've got from Celtic fans, because I've just said that Rangers are slightly higher in my opinion, whatever it is, they absolutely despise it. It is just something that you've never seen. You can't quite comprehend. Glasgow, Celtic or Rangers, which one is it? I just think it makes for such an amazing, amazing rivalry, a great spectacle. It's also helped by the fact they play each other like 12 times a season, it feels like. But ultimately, I will never say no to an Old Firm. Never say no to it. Absolutely love it. The history, the current state of it, the fact that Celtic are on top and Rangers trying to dethrone them. It is, I mean, you know, if you were going to make about football and you wanted to try and make one, that's where you go. You go up to Scotland and you film Celtic and Rangers. And that is crazy, you know, just off the top of the head here, that we've not ever seen a football film that's made big budget about stuff like this. Because I tell you now, you would have an unbelievable film in that there. So the biggest rivalry in the UK, Celtic and Rangers. And look, here's my list. Here's my list. Have a look at it. Give the video a pause if you want to just make sure you see where everyone is. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think I've got it right? Have I got it wrong? Is anyone a bit further down? Have I missed one? I mean, I've just noticed whilst filming it that I haven't done West Brom and Villa. Again, where would I put that? Decent enough. But are there more examples like that? Let me know in the comments. I'm keen to see what you guys think. If you are enjoying the content, we have got so much more coming in the next coming months. I mean, the end of the season is going to be a massive, massive push from me. And then, of course, over the summer, the World Cup, I'm going to be covering that. And then again, we go back into it, don't we? Roll it round again. Pre-season predictions, one of my favourite times. So if you are enjoying the content, please do stick around, join the journey. We've got a massive end to the season, a massive year plan next year as well. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.